So you want to know about parenting autism, and today we're going to do a video with a good friend of mine, Kevin, and he has a channel dedicated to bringing up his child who has autism. So we're going to dive right in and ask questions coming right up. Okay, so this is a different video. This is a collaboration video with Kevin, so please check out his channel. The links are in the description below or on the end card so that you can check it out. But today, this is part 2 of a part 1 video, and part 1 video was done on Kevin's channel where he asked me questions about growing up with Asperger syndrome. So if you want to see that video, go and check it out. I'll link that video in the first line of the description below so you can actually check that out, but give it some love. So today, we're going to talk about what's it like being a parent of a child who is on the spectrum and all the kind of things that go with that. So Kevin, do you want to say hello to everybody?
Hello everybody!
Cool. So this is the first time me and Kevin have done a video. We've been trying to do a video now for about, I don't know, it's been 2 weeks of plan. Well, it's been a couple of months of planning on idea.
Oh, it's been a while. It has absolutely been a while.
It's been about 2 weeks of solid, no, not this day. Yeah, this day. No, not this day. Because we're all busy and everything's crazy. So without further ado, we're going to get stuck into these questions. Now, before we do that, I would just like to say, if you like this type of content, can you let me know in the comments below if you want to see more of this type of stuff, and any other kind of collaboration ideas you have with somebody like Kevin. It would be really cool because I want to do some more videos with Kevin, so let me know in the comments below. So Kevin, this is something that I think a lot of parents would probably want to know, and this is a question that kind of comes up a lot in my comments, and it's like, what is it like being a guardian, a parental kind of a guardian of somebody on the spectrum and seeing them day to day kind of, you know, going through their emotions really?
I think I've probably got quite a good insight on this actually, because as some of your audience may know, I'm not actually Andy's dad. I'm his stepdad. He's my partner and his son. I met him when he was about 7 years old. So I've kind of, unlike a lot of parents of children with autism who, especially if they've only got the one kid, which was Anna's situation before we met, she only had Andy. She knew what being Andy's mum was like, and she didn't necessarily know that was very different from if he didn't have autism. Whereas I've got 2 kids of my own, who obviously the oldest one of those is 16, so I've had plenty of parenting a neurotypical kid experience, and then I'm able to contrast that with what it's like being Andy's dad, which is what I am now. And the big difference between, I guess, my life before Andy and my life after Andy is just how much more structure and routine we have in our lives now. For example, and this is gonna date this video. I apologise if we didn't get these out on the day, you know, but we are busy. But we're gonna go and see the Avengers: Infinity War tonight because I'm a massive nerd, as you can see from the stuff behind me. And previously, in life before Andy, I would have just decided to go and then gone. But life after Andy, that's not how it works anymore. For a start, he hates the cinema. We've tried to take him to the cinema before. He hates it. We've taken him to autism specialist screenings because one of my friends is a manager of a cinema and puts these sessions on, and they are fantastic. They have the lights up, the sound down. It's very, very cool. But even then, Andy doesn't want to sit and watch a movie for an hour and a half, 2 hours, or probably longer for an Avengers movie. It's just not something that he's into. So we have to plan a time we can go when he's not going to be with us. So we've waited until he's at his respite care, and then we have to plan it far enough in advance to make sure that we've got this pocket of time, and we've literally got like a 3-hour pocket of time in the next month where we can go and see this movie. So we've booked the tickets, we've got our reserved seats, we are absolutely definitely going to see the movie. And it's before I knew Anna, before I knew Andy, the thought of having to go to that much planning. I've planned seeing this movie 2 weeks in advance, and I would never have done that with a movie previously. And it's just one little example of the routine and the structure that we've had to add into our lives just to make him feel a little bit more comfortable. I mean, because bottom line, it was a massive upheaval for him 6-7 years ago, because they moved from Nottingham to come and live with me. I didn't go and live with them. He moved 50 miles away from the place he's always known, the place he still looks at on Google Maps and refers to as home. So I think I owe it to him and I owe it to them to make the changes, to make being here as comfortable as it possibly can be for him. And routine, he absolutely thrives on it. And I don't know, you've got other little bits like, you know, those lie-ins that you look forward to at the weekend when your kids hit teenagers and you think, oh, I'll be able to lie in now. Doesn't work like that anymore. Andy gets up if he stays in bed until 6 a.m, that's a bit of a lie-in for him, especially when we get into the summer. He very much wakes up when the sun gets up. So in the summer, he's going to be up at 4 a.m. And yeah, I can't remember what lions are like at this point.
So it's quite interesting because it sounds like it's a learning curve for everybody involved. So like not only is like the child growing and learning in a different sense, you have to then relearn everything you've already learned, especially if you've had children who are older and neurotypical. So it sounds like a really fun kind of experience, but it does have its trials. I do understand, but I hope that kind of like helps somebody here kind of feel more relative, so they don't, they can go, oh yeah, I'm totally like that. So if you're experiencing this as well, leave us a comment down below. I'm sure Kevin will come in and kind of like have a chat on the comments, and just, that'll be awesome. Okay, so what are my other questions here? So this is a good question, and if you want to see, like, again, these are all questions that I have already answered from my perspective over on Kevin's channel. So this next one is, what do you worry most about being a parent of a child with autism?
I categorise our worries in. We have our two categories. We have our short-term worries and our long-term worries, and depending on how it's, I relate it back to I used to teach a little bit of business occasionally back in my former life, and they would have the urgent, important matrix in business, where you'd have your problems that are both urgent and important, and they're the ones you deal with first, and then scaling back down on this matrix to the non-urgent, non-important stuff that you tend never to get around to. And being a parent of somebody with autism, it's very, very easy to fall into the trap of only ever dealing with the urgent stuff. So you do the urgent, important first of all, but then you move across into the urgent, not important. And sometimes the non-urgent but important stuff you kind of forget about. It gets pushed onto the back burner because it's very easy from sun up to sundown every single day, everything is urgent, and you often don't get to sit back and think, right, well, what's the actual important stuff? And an example of that at the moment is some of our short-term worries. We're very worried about his weight at the moment. He was ill over the Christmas period. He seems to get ill every January. We think he's got seasonal affective disorder. We can't get any kind of diagnosis of that because no one will help us with that. So that's a battle that we've got going on at the moment. But we're pretty sure that's what's causing it. But every January, he goes through this thing where he gets sick, he gets run down, and he stops eating. And this year, he's a really little lad anyway, but he lost about 1 stone. And he's already on a very, very restrictive diet. So he got down to about 4.5 stone. I think he's 5'2" at 4.5 stone. So he was properly thin. And we were like really, really worried. But looking at that in the greater context of things, we know from previous years that he always does that and he always puts the weight back on. He's not very well. He's got the flu. And when he starts eating again, the weight will come back on. Everybody loses weight when they're ill. But obviously with the whole social services team around the child stuff that you get, their worries just explode. He's 4.5 stone. Let's panic. What are we going to do? Should we be admitting him to hospital? Etc, etc, etc. So weight, diet, it's a massive, massive short-term worry, but longer term, he's putting the weight back on. He's absolutely fine. And he is actually trying more foods now as well, which is a thing that we never imagined that he would do, because he's survived on salt and vinegar crisps for 10 years at this point. But he is actually starting to try little bits of other food. So he's actually come out the other side of this period of no eating into he's actually trying a little bit more stuff as well. But then we have the longer term big worries that these are the ones that sit down in the important but not urgent section of the matrix, and you almost kind of don't want to think about them. But he's 13 now, and I would say the biggest worry, the one that keeps us up at night, is what on earth is he going to do when he leaves school? What are we going to do when he leaves school? How's he going to pay his bills? Is he going to be with us? If he's with us, what happens if we get ill? What happens when we die? Where's he going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And oh goodness me, it's terrifying. And I'm kind of glad it stays down in the non-urgent section, because then we don't have to think about it too much, because occasionally it does come up in a conversation, and it can get pretty depressing pretty quickly, getting bogged down in there. And the bottom line is, we just don't know. We don't know how he's going to develop over the next year, let alone the next 5 or 10 years. We could have a complete role reversal 10 years down the line, when he's sat there in his own house enjoying life, worrying about what's going to happen when we're too ill to go to work anymore, and we just don't know.
No, this is true. I think this is a worry that's probably shared between a lot of people. Like I said, I answered this in your video, but like, I think it's a worry that everybody has. So it's not kind of like something that you have to think that you're on your own with. And I do believe that there will be social service stuff in place, especially like, you know, social service care will always be available, because it has to be. I mean, we're humans at the end of the day. I think that, you know, people can get better at their skills and develop, but the older they get. I mean, I was really, I was worse. This is a horrible terminology, there's no way to explain it. So I was worse than I am now until I was about 15. Up until I was about 15, I was rubbish. I didn't have any friends. Not really going out. It was really super agoraphobic, they called it. It wasn't social anxiety, but wouldn't go to the store down the road. I'd never been out on my own. All this kind of stuff. Very, very difficult to deal with. But as soon as I got into music, and I was kind of focusing my energy on performing and stuff, it built confidence. That confidence gave me that kind of cockiness to try different things. But like I seen in one of your vlogs, you said that he'd started having potato waffles, which was really cool. And that made you want to find, what you really need to do is find out where that confidence came from. And did he see somebody eating it on TV that he idolizes? Did he see it and like the colors of the packet? Those things. Those things are what's going to save you, because they're the things you're going to kind of want to push towards. So the more confident, the easier that transition to living independently without you guys is going to be, or not independently, but semi-independently, or sheltered accommodation, or whatever it's going to be. And like I said, I can't live independently. It's just a fact of life, and I feel and it's weird because I'm quite functioning and intellectually able to think about it. It's quite saddened, really. Thinking like I could never live on my own. This is something I can't do, but. At the same time, I get to enjoy somebody's company, and that's somebody who I can kind of I get along with, like my partner. She's awesome, and she works with people on the spectrum, so that's awesome. So it's something that is apparent, and I think that don't bog yourself down with it, because everything will be okay in the end. But just kind of the only advice I can give anybody is to kind of just make sure that you plan as much as you can, really, and just kind of be prepared for changes. So. The next question I've got here is kind of what's been the biggest change in Andy that you've seen, since you've known him, really?
I think it's probably the change that we've been able to document on the vlog over the last year and a half, because one of the reasons why we started talking about Andy and family life on the internet was because we were absolutely at our lowest point as a family. He'd been refusing to go to school for a year and a half. He was actually at the point where him and Anna, my partner, they were basically locked in the house all day, every day. He wouldn't go out. She ended up, probably after about a year of him not going to school, they ended up not leaving the house at all, because he'd got to the point where when they went to the shops, he would take off all his clothes, lie on the floor and refuse to move. So they had a good 6-month period where they were in the house all day, every day, and just didn't leave. And to take him from there in the space of, we're a year on now, but really it took about 6 months from that point to get him to the point where he was back at school, he was happy again, he was enjoying life, and Anna was able to go back and carry on with university, which she had to give up when he first started refusing to go to school. And it's a weird thing, and it kind of, we know it didn't just happen by itself, because having hit our lowest point, we kind of really started to scream and shout, not just on the internet, but at anyone who would listen, not Andy, but anyone who would listen. Because from the moment they moved from Nottingham over to Peterborough, there was no support at all. He was under the care of a social worker over in Nottingham, but when we came to Lincolnshire, we were told, no, he's not going to get that. He's just, they didn't say it in so many words, but it was basically he's just the autistic kid. Just you can figure it out. It's fine. And it took him refusing to go to school for, I mean, he was off for a year by the time social services actually listened and got involved. And I had to demand that we get a social worker assigned to him, because I knew it would give us access to other services that would really, really help him. And over the course of that 6-month period where he went from being a complete shut-in who barely spoke, didn't do anything other than watch YouTube videos, and was quite violent and aggressive, he got from there, he got a social worker, we got him a dietitian, we got him a place in a local respite care home place, he got anxiety medication, and it turns out it wasn't being the autistic kid that was his problem anyway. It was anxiety. It was all anxiety, and as soon as the anxiety was diagnosed and treated, everything else just changed. And he's now taking daily medication for his anxiety. He wears compression vests, which have been a massive, massive help to him as well. And he's the anxiety side of things is so minimized now. I mean, he still has moments where he's just afraid or doesn't understand, but he's now much better able to cope with life. And the way the doctor described it is the medication that he gets for his anxiety, it's not about dulling his senses, it's not about artificially cheering him up. All the medication does is it gives him a little pocket of time to think before reacting, because before there would be some kind of outside influence, whether it was a noise or a light or a person or a situation, and he would react before he was able to process what was happening, and his reaction was always run away, scream and shout, I don't want to be a part of this. Whereas taking the medication just gives him that tiny little bit of time between the stimulus and the reaction to just think, is this something that I need to run away from, or is this okay? And just that one little change has completely, and I can't over exaggerate this, it's not possible to, it has changed not just his life but all of our lives 180 degrees. Everything is different now, and it was all as a result of getting that diagnosis of anxiety and actually dealing with that, and not just writing it off in well, he's got autism, what do you expect? Which was that was genuinely the attitude we were getting from people for 4 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, like, it's an amazing to see the change like that. But again, it's yeah, when people's attitudes change to say, like, rather than just being like, oh, that's just how he is, they've been like, okay, well, how can we help in the areas, like you said, you isolate the thing, well, it's anxiety, so we'll treat it. And it's amazing how much you can kind of accomplish when you just kind of look at something in its detail and say, okay, we'll treat that one. But that is fascinating, and it's quite nice to know that actually it has changed. That's kind of like a positive. One thing I was going to mention though is I do have seasonal affective disorder as well, so I have a sun lamp, which is it stimulates melatonin and stuff in the winter, and it kind of like it wakes up with me, so it kind of wakes me up, and that's cool. So I'll leave a link for that in the description below if anyone's interested in checking it out as well.
I'm interested in checking that out for sure.
Like, and it's kind of like semicircle, and it kind of rises like the sun, and it illuminates the room just like the sun would. So that's fantastic.
I think I know of them, so I will check that out. The issue we've got with stuff like that is he hates lamps. We've tried to put lamps in his room before and he just takes them out, but hopefully if he's able to see it that's making him feel better, he might put it out of reach, and if it's making him feel better, he might leave it in there, because that is something that he does tend to do. Like the compression vests I mentioned before, he hates wearing vests, he hates wearing clothes, but because he knows they help, he'll wear them.
No, definitely, and I think another thing is vitamin D supplement. So I take a vitamin D supplement every single day. I think 10 micrograms is adequate, but I think maybe 5 micrograms for children in the age of 12 maybe, or 14. But definitely check it out. But I find that vitamin D definitely helped, because when you were saying he was getting sick over Christmas time, then this is because there's a lack of melatonin and lack of vitamin D from the sunlight, which will obviously it's an immune system issue. So vitamin D actually helps build the immune system. So yeah, if you're interested, I can definitely give you more on that. But
absolutely.
But something interesting you said about like anger management and stuff. I'll tell you one of the things that really helped. I had my anger and rage was horrible right up until maybe about 3 years ago, and then I was assigned anger management with a psychological intervention psychologist, and we went through anger management, and it's been amazing. I don't hit my head anymore. I've got techniques of learning how to manage anger. It's incredible the change from that. Just having somebody say, okay, let's look at anger management, right? That change just like a domino effect. It just helped so many things. So I wasn't getting angry, then I wasn't getting down, I wasn't getting the overstimulated meltdown, I wasn't having an extra come down with the headache and all the other stuff. Didn't get the alopecia anymore. And so yeah, what you're saying about like that last part it was so powerful. So yeah, very, very good, very good. So the last thing we'll do here now to close this video off is to say, what is one thing or a couple of things that you would give parents that say like what's helped you guys, and what would be a tip that parents could kind of pick up from you if they're not already doing it, that is?
Yeah, I mean my biggest tip that I would say to parents is don't ever stop fighting, because unfortunately, because of the way the system works, there isn't funding to give everyone everything that they need. And unfortunately, the way a large part of the social care system, the education system, the NHS, the way a lot of this works is if you just accept the first answer that you're given, the first answer will always be no. There are circumstances where that's not necessarily the case. Obviously, if something's really, really serious, then I know people do intervene. But taking the whole not getting a social worker for years thing as an example, we knew the amount of services that would open up to us if we could get that. And it would have been very, very easy at any point during that 4-year period to just go, you know what, they've said no so many times. Let's just see if we can figure this out for ourselves. And I genuinely think, and me and Anna have talked about this, I don't know that our family would have survived that last year if it had carried on and been the way the year before was. I don't know if I'd have been able to cope with it. I don't know if she'd have been able to cope with it. Andy certainly wasn't coping with it, and I don't think we'd have made it through. But because I'm a stroppy so-and-so who doesn't take no for an answer, we were able to finally get the help that we needed, and we don't stop pushing. If we know something's going to help him out, or if we're not satisfied with an answer, we will push. And ultimately, as a parent, you know your kid better than anyone. Regardless of what these experts try to tell you, I'm not saying you've got the expert knowledge that they've got, but you know your kid better than they do. We've been to see a dietitian so many times about Andy's diet, and they now don't bother saying, well, make sure you give him a balanced diet. But the first few times we went to see a dietitian, the advice from the qualified dietitian, and luckily it's not the same one we see now, so I don't mind being a little bit critical because she's not going to see it. The advice that she was given the first time was always, just give him a balanced diet. And that was literally it. We would respond with, how? And this was a thing that it was the worst thing you can say to a parent of a kid with autism, and it's one word, and it is the worst word she could possibly have said, but she said it at a couple of different appointments when we were going, well, how do we do that? And the response was, try. Oh my goodness, we didn't think of that. If only we'd have thought to try, then we wouldn't have been here in the first place. We just had to try. Oh my goodness. And you will get that. And unfortunately, it's absolutely not the right word, but it is a niche condition still. To be able to take Andy to the dentist, it's a 45-minute trip one way, 45 minutes back, because it's the only dentist anywhere near where we live that can work with someone with autism. I lose count of the amount of times we've been asked to leave barbers. The doctors, our local GP, won't touch him. We took him in with, because we think he had conjunctivitis. We took him into the doctors a few months ago, and the doctor diagnosed conjunctivitis from the other side of the room without looking at his eyes, because he was afraid to go near him, because he was squirming and didn't want to be there. And actually said, well, here's some. He's prescribed 3 things. We've got some an antihistamine, which helps with conjunctivitis. We've got some eye drops, and then he also prescribed some antibiotics. Don't give him them now, but if you think he needs them in a few days, give him some antibiotics. And I said to them there and then, how could I possibly know if he needs antibiotics? What are you prescribing them for? So it's insane, and it's an unfortunate truth that you will come up against so many professionals who just don't understand autism, and all you can do as a parent is make sure that you understand as much as you can, and you're always learning. I mean, I certainly wouldn't call myself an expert. I learn something new about Andy every single day, but you've just got to have confidence in your convictions, and if you know something is going to benefit him, like the thing with the anxiety diagnosis from last year, if you just know that there's something going on and that there's a solution, you just got to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, and not take no for an answer. And it does lead to some uncomfortable conversations from time to time, but they're uncomfortable conversations that get results, and it's just the way it has to be sometimes.
No, definitely. And I think this is one of the things that I'm doing with my channel. People say to me, I set a goal to get 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and the reason I did that is because I feel like when I have my goal and what I'm doing politically and systematically here with the Aspie world is I'm setting myself up as an authority with all these people behind me to go and try and change systematic issues. So like what doctor surgeries, every doctor should be trained in autism, every hospital should be trained in autism. I mean, come on, it's that their one job is healthcare. Like, how are they not doing it? So, and then the like just everything, like airports and shopping malls and shops and everything needs to be accessible for all. And this is the overall big whole mission of the Aspie world, and this is what we're doing here. So yeah, we're fighting the fight, and I totally understand what you're going through. It's crazy. But if you'd like to check out Kevin's channel, please make sure you head over to his channel. The link will be over here somewhere and in the description below. And also, if you want to check out one of the other videos that we've already done, I'll link it here somewhere. Subscribe to this video if you're new around here, and I'll see you next time, guys. Peace!